Ta-da! I made it. Once again, I thought I'd hit the button, and I'm sitting here waiting for it to come on and go live, and it wasn't going live, and I realized I didn't hit the second button. How is everybody this morning? Hey, John, if you're still out there listening, I know John's going golfing, and you may already be on the links, but he was driving. He was riding, and somebody else was driving, and so he was able to. He might be listening in. Hi, Julie McCowan. Welcome. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming back and joining us this morning. I don't know where my cohort is, but he'll be here anytime now, I'm sure, unless there's some reason he is out of knocked at their unless their electronics are out of commission today, which happens once in a while. But I expect him to pop in any moment. Nope, let me make sure I send him a link though. Yep, I got it. I sent it to him. And my sometimes I look frozen and I'm just sitting here being quiet and really still. How's Julie this morning? Doing it? You got anything planned for the weekend? I don't know. I don't know if there's anything special going on for May Day was a couple days ago, so tomorrow's May the 4th be with you day. Um, I remember that now because it's Josh Nelson's Resort TV one. Josh, that's his birthday, which I always thought was cool because he seems to really love Star Trek or Star Wars. Good morning, Tina. Okay, I have liked and shared. I'm cold and miserable, and just like our weather. Oh, hang on a minute. Here he is. What's up, Doc? I'm sitting here online. Are you not able to find me? Well, let me send it to you again and see if there's a maybe I maybe I didn't copy it all right. Well, hell. Okay, hang on. I'll bear with me. I'll send it to you again. All right. I'll call you right back. I'll call. Well, no, hey, just hang on the phone. Hang on. Let me do it while we're sitting here. Sorry, folks. We have technical difficulty this morning. Endeavor to persevere. You can get an award from the president for that. Like Abraham Lincoln. Well, I'm gonna send you the link again too. So bear with. I heard something click. Copy. Do you see you don't see me at all? Okay. Okay, hang on, just bear with me. I'm gonna mute guys, I'm gonna mute my microphone for a minute. you are. I'm hanging up on you.
Just hung right up on me. Can you hear me?
I can now. I was muted, so
All right.
But now, actually, I don't know what I don't know what I did. I must not have copied the link right. Anyway, we're back. Hey, everybody, we got
There's all kind of people on the chat.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm wearing sunglasses this morning, but my dog poked me in the eyeball last night during the middle of the night, and my right eye, which is my shooting eye,
Yeah.
and it hurts to see the light. So I've got.
He probably scratched it.
I put sunglasses on this morning.
Well, that's quite. You can wear sunglasses anytime. Hopefully it's not anything too bad. Which one did that?
Makes me look like Maverick.
Yeah. You need your helmet.
The Mav.
Which dog got you, Wolfie or one of the other ones?
Penny. She was laying beside me in the bed, and she tends to like roll over onto her back and like put her belly up so I can scratch her.
Yeah. Oh,
and I didn't do that, and she reached out for me and grabbed me on the right eyeball, and it's kind of tender this morning.
Good morning, Dave. Dave's Disney Dreams is with us. Funny you should say that because our cats do the same thing, especially the little one. She gets Brenda up when she decides it's time to eat. That's the one thing she does that's cat-like and irritating, I guess. She'll get when she decides it's time to eat. It could be 3:30 or it could be 6:00. She'll reach up and start scratching Brenda's chin. She hadn't got her eye, but she'll start. And then if that don't work, she'll sit there and knock everything off nightstand until she gets her attention. The rest of the time, she doesn't bother you. I mean, she's fine.
So Wolfgang, the little grizzly bear, he gets Mama up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And so to give Mama a break, I like kept him with me last night because I snore so bad we can't hardly sleep together anymore.
I get that. Brenda and I don't either much.
And I stuck him up against my legs last night, and he slept like a baby till like 7 o'clock.
Well, that's good. He didn't keep you up either.
He didn't keep me up. He just slept, but I had a whole bed full of flipping dogs. You can't have 2 humans in a bed if you got like 6 dogs laying on you.
John, good morning, John.
Most of them are big dogs, so
yeah, most of them are. John says he's still got 5 more hours to go to get to the golfing range, the hunting grounds. I didn't realize. I forgot it was that far, John.
John, how do those eggs taste when you catch them? Can you eat a golf egg?
I've never been able to cut one and eat it.
I've never seen an adult golf, but I've seen the eggs.
I hear golfers talk about slicing them all the time, but I can't slice one for damn it. He's not playing today, he said. They're getting there today.
I bet you can boil those things a long time before they're edible.
I suspect a long, long time. I have cut them open before, and some of them have a squishy center, like an egg yolk almost.
I've seen,
or they used to. They may not have that. That may not be the case anymore.
I saw a deal. I think it was George Carlin, like You hit the little white ball, and if you can find it, you win.
That's about right. Where's Dave going? Dave must be doing something fun today. Oh, there's Adventures by D also. Welcome in that, Dave. Oh, big trip coming, he said. Dave said. This Dave said.
Hopefully he's going to like Belize to catch permit and bonefish.
Yeah, that would be a great trip. Tina says, I've always said golf is a nice, relaxing walk around by a little white ball. John probably disagrees, but sometimes I felt that. I've tried to play it a time or two. Mark has golfers in his family, so
I have two really good golfers in my family.
yeah, one of them's a golf coach, right?
One of them coaches golf for the high school, and one of them was one of the players for the high school,
Ah.
and was really good. And I've been trying to convince both of them to let me have like talk to the
Oh
golf
yeah.
course and have an archery golf tournament. Because I couldn't give a rat's backside about hitting a little old white ball. And my son, he when he hits a golf ball, I saw him do it once. He's playing baseball again. It's not
Yeah.
his swing is just like, he was Rafi Devers, like swinging through the ball. I'm gonna hit the ball over the green monster. That's his deal.
That usually doesn't work out all that well either.
And, yeah, it's just like and that references to Boston because that's who we root for. So
yeah, Mark
and we watched them whoop the backside off the Twins last night. So
oh, did you? I was watching hockey last night, and unfortunately, to our friend Mike in Canada, the Winnipeg Jets lost last night, so they've got to go now into a game 7. They play tomorrow again, and they'll either move on or they won't. And I really hate that because I would have picked them to be one or two teams to make it to the end. They had a great season, but boy, they've just kind of folded here in the tournament.
well, I had a great night of TV last night. I got to watch the Red Sox whoop up on the Twins, and then when the game ended, I turned her over to the Cowboy channel, and
Ah,
they had extreme bull riding on for like 2 or 3 more hours, and so I had a great night of TV last night
cool.
with
Did,
with the son, and then he got up at 04:30 this morning and went Brandon. So
that Sammy? Well, yeah, it would be
yeah,
Sammy. So
Sammy.
he's out rounding up cattle again today.
Yeah, but it's a little batch. It's
Just what?
100 head of cows, 100 head of calves. Um, it's a it's a little draft. I didn't have to go because
What's
I
all?
told him I wasn't going to. I was like, I missed three shows in a row with Timothy, and so I was going to be on this morning.
And here you are, by God.
Well, they'll get them done in not too long, so they got plenty of help.
Well, how many head did you guys work last weekend? You reckon?
About 500.
Whew.
It was a long day. We started at we got out there at about 05:30, maybe 6 o'clock. Got horseback, went and gathered cattle, and we were done. We got home at 9:30 p.m. So,
We'll try something here, Barrett.
and
Don't.
this old cowboy was sore and hurt,
Yeah, I know how that works
and
because
and and tired and filthy. And my wife was like, "Here, eat a sandwich," because they didn't feed us that day.
oh Lord,
No, it was just constant work, and we didn't eat a thing. We might have ate a granola bar, and then we got home, and my wife's like, "Here, boys, eat a sandwich," and she gave Sam a sandwich, and he goes, "This is the best sandwich I've ever eaten in my life." And I was so tired.
he was
I didn't even want to eat. I said, and stinky and smelling like burnt hair and
right.
blood
Sure.
and calf scours. I just went to bed.
I know, I know how those. I never don't know from driving cattle, but I know how those days are. I
So
used speaking of that though,
it
and
was a long old day.
I worked in a, I did one summer. I don't know if I knew you then. Maybe. I don't know. Probably not. I was doing work at I worked for. You remember Pat Patrick from
Yeah.
Crockett? Uh,
Yep.
I worked for him for a couple years at part time in the summers and during the winter, and when we were out of school and stuff, he did all kinds of electrical contracting and some other stuff. We completely we I almost want to say we
That's
rebuilt.
not me whining. That's well.
What?
I said that's not me that's whining. That's
Oh,
Wolfgang.
we rebuilt a slaughterhouse. Literally, we made it big. We built a whole new building over the old building, and then rewired it. And the whole time they kept working and doing their thing and cutting up meat and doing away with cattle. And I don't want to get too crude, but that slaughterhouse. And it was those old guys that worked on the again, guys. This there might need to be some permission slips sent out. I forgot to mention that because we might talk about things that other people might not want to hear. Oh, I lost him. Anyway, while he's coming back, um, the old guys that worked on the kill floor where they actually put the animals down and then slaughtered them and all kinds of things that go along with that. I don't know how graphic to get here. They'd sit down, dinner bell ring, and they just sit down right there on the kill floor and eat their lunch. And all of us that were out there just working, during the summer to rebuild the building, we went somewhere else and ate. We didn't never ate right there with them. Okay, I wonder what's going on here with Marco. Good morning, Tony. You may have been here and I just saw you, but if you're just arriving, welcome. Well, even if you're not just arriving, welcome. And sorry I missed you if I did. I've missed a lot because I've been fooling with other things. There he is. He's back. There you are.
This stupid technology BS.
It's probably between here and there and the weather or something. I
I,
mean,
it's bright and sunny. Like I said, I had to put sunglasses on because my eye hurts. It is a bluebird sky here, so
oh,
I don't even get it.
it's cloudy here. It may be on my end because we've got storms out coming this way. I think we had a little one. Weird thing happened last night after I got home from all my doctor runnings and travel. We were on the road all day yesterday, and I came up here for a few minutes to send you the link and finish doing some stuff. And I'm sitting here, and it wasn't really cloudy, but I looked when I came up, walked up to the library. over the ridge here, I saw some dark clouds, but over here, nothing. It was just normal. And I sat down. And after a while, I heard that rumble again, and I heard the wind come blowing through. That is the strangest thing. Not well, fun, kind of a neat thing when it happens. And I've never lived someplace where the wind announced itself like it does here. Um, and Brenda said just for a few moments we had rain, but when I left the library, which was within the hour to go back down to the house, nothing was wet. And
Yeah,
I said,
it already dried out.
I said, you're full of crap. I said, it didn't rain because I just came in. The grass wasn't even wet. She said, oh, yes, it did because I was standing outside and I got rained on. I said, well, it's gone because there was nothing. And I think we had, but then I think we had a little bit during the night. I heard thunder rumbling behind. Again, it was kind of over the ridge here. So we get this weather patterns. We either get it or it's all, to the north or south of us and a ridge on the other side of the next ridge. Cause, we're just in here laying in these ridge and valleys. And it's kind of unique. It's funny, but when
Well,
that comes, I hear it coming.
so just weird stuff's been happening. So Dad called last night, and the phone was sitting in here in the dining room, my phone. I heard it ring, but I didn't get to it in time because I was watching bull riding. And I got the phone picked up and called him right back. And I called him on his cell phone because that's what he called on. And I got some other entirely different human being.
Wait, whoa, just a minute. Whoa, stop. You said he called you on a cell phone?
He called me on his cellular device. He uses burner phones.
But he can get a cell phone signal now in his house?
Yeah.
Oh, because last time I was there, there was a dead zone. There was nothing
So
there.
he called me on his cellular device. Well, Mom got some kind of fancy internet, and
Oh, that's right.
so they can call now. So he called me on his cell phone. I called back immediately, got some other different human being, probably got him up out of bed. And then I called him on their home phone twice and got some other two different human beings. And
Oh,
the dude kept saying hello, 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 hello.
where were they? What part of the world
So
were
I called Lacey and got her on her cell phone and said, "Have you seen Mom and Dad? What's going on?" Because they're in their mid-80s.
they? Right.
I called my niece and like, "Hey, what's happening?" She goes, "I was just with them like 10 minutes ago."
Which is probably true.
And so she called Dad and like, "Hey, call Mark again," and he did, and then it was actually him.
That's
And I
strange.
it just freaked me out. I was getting ready to like put together a team and head seriously. Like I know some guys
Yeah.
and they're my buddies and they will go with me. And it'll be a little while before we get there.
But you will get there.
But we will. I mean, it was like there were different people in their house,
That's
kind of a
strange.
deal.
That's weird.
And all the voices were male, and I was just like, this ain't happening.
But when
I
I
will gut your liver and eat it.
it had to be some kind of atmospheric anomaly, and if we were teenagers when we grew up, something like that happened. It was really, really strange. But today, I mean, I guess it's the one that doesn't happen more often.
It
I don't
should. It was something strange, and I don't. I apologize to all the guys that I got up out of bed when I called them.
Did you ever ask them who they were or
Well, I'm
anything?
glad they weren't at my mom and dad's house.
Yeah, well, that's a good
Because,
point.
like I said, I'd
Yeah,
turn
no,
in.
I get
I'd
it.
turn into a Ojibwe, and they'd get their moccasins puckered.
One way to put it. That's um, that's just strange, but they're okay, right? Everything's okay at home.
Yeah, they're fine. They're just
You know,
dad,
your folks may outlive.
dad, dad's cheese has slipped off his cracker, but other than that, it's okay.
If they're both, I mean, I'll be honest, they're both tough as wet leather. I could, they may outlive you and I. You do know that.
I do know that.
I mean, they already. I
I
mean,
t- and my wife will be the same way. And she said, "Don't you?" I said, "I'm probably going to go. I'm younger than her, and I said I'll probably go first, and you'll have a vessel to put me in, and Sam knows where to put me."
yeah.
And she said, "Don't you even think about it."
Well, you may not
She
have
just,
anything to
she
say
just
about
she just told me that last night. Don't even think about it.
it. Oh well. Oh, guys, well, welcome in everybody. Kay, I saw you come in. I said hi, but I didn't. I
Good
don't.
morning, everybody. I'm sorry I didn't say that before, too.
Yeah, we've been busy catching up here a little bit. There was something I was. In fact, there was something I was just going to tell
I don't
you.
even know what we're talking about. Oh,
What?
you're a little doggy bear. Now I remember.
Let me pull. In fact,
I've been looking forward to this one.
I'm going to pop it on the screen just right here. Oh, you know what I didn't do?
You
Hang
didn't
on.
put you didn't put your deal on there, so we can't even watch it.
No, I'm getting ready to do that. What I meant to do before that was this.
What's that? I hear a noise, but not nothing. Oh, there he is. The man. Get along, little doggies. He's,
Can you hear it?
no,
Oh man.
it's not. Nothing's happening, dude. It's playing, but it's not singing.
Well, Roy Rogers sings along with
Is he singing? I can't. I can't get
yeah,
along with
singing,
doggies. I
and
can't
it's
get
probably the
along
Sons of the
with
Pioneer.
small. I can't get along, little doggy. I can't get a doggy at all.
That's the Sam version, isn't it? Sam.
That's the Yosemite. That
Right.
used to be my ringtone on my phone.
I hate you can't hear it, man. I got to figure out how to put. I got to figure out how to set up background music for my show. I really do. Anyway, that's I wanted to play that for a start. John Wayne was the first singing cowboy. You know, I almost want to say I've heard that before.
He was on. There was a lot of. He did a lot of like old black and white silent westerns, and he was always singing. And it's like, well, you can't hear him.
Huh.
It was kind of just like that deal.
So it wouldn't matter if you could sing worth a
You
damn or
could
not.
you could see him singing, but not hear him singing.
Okay, well now I'm going to go back to our regular scheduled program.
Are we going to be able to hear anything?
Well, we're going to find out in a minute. I don't know. You may not, but I'm hoping that because I've embedded those videos in the ones I got, those videos in my show, I'm hoping they'll pop up. But anyway,
Oh, you don't even have, you got Ecuadorians and Florida crackers.
I got your pictures. Don't worry. I already had these. I was looking for roundup pictures. No, I actually put these on here for a reason because they're so weird. I wouldn't ever. These aren't the pictures I expected to find.
Well, that's where cracker came from.
But that's where the term cracker. You guys, some of you may know this, all of you may know this, but the term when they call a Southerner a cracker, it really goes back to the Florida cracker, which were Cowboys, Florida Cowboys, and they all a common tool in Florida was a short whip that they just used to make that really loud popping cracking noise, and they used that
just to move cattle.
Yeah, they used it just to move cattle, and they became known as crackers. And that term kind of spread out over years to become, kind of a generic Southern term. But it really came out of Florida, and
only Florida.
Yeah, only Florida. Yeah.
So when I hired on it, this is a little squirrel, but when I hired on with the department here, one of the gentlemen that was interviewing me called me a cracker.
Yeah.
And we had an actual cracker like sitting at the table, also interviewing me.
A Florida guy?
A native Floridian, not a moved in lately Floridian, but a native Floridian.
Not many of those out there anymore.
And we called him Gator. And I told Gator, like, would you explain to Dr. Haryu the difference between a cracker and a hillbilly? Because I was gonna be the diversity hire. and Haryu kept calling me a cracker, and I'm like, hold on. And I turned to Gator and I said, could you explain the difference? And he goes, yeah. And he told him the difference, and I'm like, thank you. And Dr. Haryu laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed over that. But
Tina said, well, I wanted you to see this thing. Carol said, Carol, this is important because Mark and I discuss this kind of thing pretty much every week because we can't remember if we called each other or not. That's how it works with us. And we were just talking about music classes too this week, Carol. Mark was telling me a song he learned in music class, and I thought he got from TV watching, and it was.
I don't want no bald-headed woman. She too mean, Lordy, she too mean.
Well, that jumped in the pan, fire too hot, and whatever you call that song.
Oh, and then old Ed McGuire jumped in the fire, fire too hot, jumped in the pot, pot too black, jumped in the crack.
Which Ernest T. Bass sang on Andy Griffith one time. So I thought that's where Mark learned it, and that wasn't it.
That wasn't it. I learned it at music class.
He said, John Wayne wants, I got to.
Lassie. He won Lassie in a poker.
I saw that. I was gonna pop that up next. Tina, you might be right. I actually went to school in Florida for airplane mechanic training, and I had a roommate who was an honest to God Florida native, and they are kind of different.
Which are rare.
But yeah, and they were not as rare then as they are now. But even then, they were becoming scarce, and they knew it. They knew they were a dying species. I didn't know about John Wayne owning Lassie. That's kind of fun. He gave him back because
Mark.
Which one are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at Carol. Mark sings 40 of your favorite cowboy hits on the on K-Tel Records.
Wow, we should have thought of that, Mark.
That
We
may
could
be
have made
the
some
hardest
money.
I've ever laughed on this show.
We messed out. We could have made some money.
I remember K-Tel Records.
Oh yeah, they come on all the time on TV. Frazzle quit.
She got me coughing now. Subscribe now, and you'll also. But wait,
Oh, but wait,
but wait.
If you order now,
You also get
for your
Tim
friend.
Pruitt's.
Instructional video on how to do
Oh
a power.
my goodness gracious. We're never going to get through this one.
Oh, I gotta get going. I better turn so Mark, last week, some of you are here, you know that Mark was not here because Mark was out actually rounding up cattle, and I'm gonna get to that. I got a few pictures for Mark. Now I got some other stuff before that, so bear with me a minute to get there. And the first thing I'm gonna bring up is always the usual. Hit the like button, consider subscribing, and leave a comment of at least 7
We
words.
better get at least one more subscriber today.
We better one more. We need one more today. One more to make me happy.
We need to get one more.
Last week you weren't here.
You're doing bacon now.
Well, just briefly. I wanted to bring this up because this came up last week towards the end of the show, and we were talking about bacon and stuff, and we were aggravating, of course, Mike and Diana a little bit about Canadian bacon, and that they mentioned,
which is just ham,
right? But they call it female bacon. Some people.
That's
and
what the Canadians call it.
Yeah, and it's because of the way they cure it. They actually cover it in like pea meal made out of peas, dried peas, and that's what that picture is. That is a piece of Canadian bacon covered in pea meal. What was that?
It's 5,978 dogs.
Oh, okay.
And my daughter like standing in the doorway here, and I'm like, take them outside.
They also use cornmeal to do this, but pea meal was the original thing they used. I never heard of this because we got to talking about how we cure hams here in this part of the world.
Yeah, which is the right way.
You know, our conversation migrated from
which is the actual way you cure a ham.
But this was another way they do it, and this is one way that they make Canadian bacon. And that also brought up the next thing. So we were talking about that, and then this came up. Somebody in this room, and I can't remember which one, talked about scrapple.
Oh, good God Almighty!
Oh, and I spelled it wrong.
I saw Mike Rowe make this stuff.
Scrapple, as I know it, it's a traditional Pennsylvania Dutch dish. That's where it came from. And it's like all the pork scraps you have left over from the pig. This is what we used to joke about being in potted meat.
This was in Vienna sausages.
Yeah, it's like everything but the squeal. And these are two
lips and backsides.
yeah, pork lips and backsides. And it was also, I've never had scrapple. I don't know what it's like. It may be.
I bet John has.
John, if you're still in here, if you've had Tina, have you had scrapple? You live up there.
Tina just said baked pig sludge.
Well, that's not so far off, I don't think. It is. It's literally what's interesting. Look at that on the right, that picture. And that looks like bread almost. But
I watched Mike Rowe, like he went to a scrapple place in Maryland or somewhere
and made it.
Maybe it was Massachusetts. One of those little bitty M states. and he and he,
Little bitty hemp stains.
and he made it with those folks, and they were. I mean, it was just it was basically all the parts of a pig that you wouldn't normally eat, including pork liver, as I recall.
Yeah, I think I read that too. I think that is true. It looks like something I'm not. Now, if it tastes like sausage, I might like it, but
I bet it tastes like spam,
I
but
well, now that might be true, and I could probably eat
and that's probably the same stuff too. And we've eaten that our whole lives.
I'm assuming.
At least I did. My dad loves it.
Oh well, yeah, I grew up eating spam. Um, Brenda doesn't like it so much. I'd still eat it, but she don't. She don't buy it much. Um,
Well, I got the low sodium farm here recently. A friend of mine brought it up. I said, "You bring the spam, I'll make the eggs. We'll have a big old breakfast together." He's an old jarhead, and he brought the spam, and he brought the low sodium kind, which I was appreciative of, and it was so salty I couldn't eat. I literally couldn't eat it.
See, that's a phenomenon we've talked about recently,
I'm
both of
like,
us.
that's the low sodium kind.
I've gotten to where I have eaten salt, and I do mean in probably in excess of salt all my life. And my mother did too. I guess I got it from her. I salt everything, and I like it that way until recently, and I taste salt in everything now.
And
And just like he
it's
said,
like
even low sodium stuff is salty.
you can't. It's like you got your maximum and you're done.
Tina said that she's had it because her mom loved it. I think she said I wasn't a fan. She does like spam, and it doesn't taste like spam.
Carol's singing about spam.
Well, anyway,
That's might kill me today.
that came up yet last week, so I threw it in here for just because I wanted to look it up after the show. John said, "What am I looking at? A cow chip?" John, we were thinking maybe you had Scrapple before, but maybe you haven't.
Always had to had it.
Come on, John, tell us the truth.
Come on.
Anyway,
The cow chip.
I just threw those in there because they came up last week.
Cow chips are round, cornbread are square.
That's right.
So I are round, cornbread
are round, cornbread are square. Jethro taught me that. I think that's the first place I ever heard that anyway. So I put together a few things here about cattle roundups. Probably most of us that are in this room at least have seen westerns and older westerns, and there were even TV shows about cattle drives. Rawhide comes to mind as one. And they were always cowboys were, often depicted as, wrestling or not wrestling, excuse me. That'll come up in a minute. Hustling cattle and out, rounding up cattle. And so I found some actual roundup pictures from, I'm going to say a bygone era, but it's not bygone. And these are late 1800s. This first group of images were late 1800s. And this was, and I have given them credit at the bottom of the page. You'll notice the University of Northern Colorado, and I might not have said that right because the letters and the name don't match up exactly. But anyway, it's the university. It is the University of Northern Colorado, and they had these pictures are out of their archives. I can't remember. I didn't write down who took it, but if you follow that link, it'll give you all that info.
You put stuff in there from Granny's?
Yeah, I got Granny stuff. That's right. Because they had cowboys too. And but these pictures are just really good typical cattle drive pictures. The first one there on the left is an honest to goodness group of cowpokes, and they're getting up. They're waiting for the drive to begin, or one morning to get breakfast, and they're laying there in their bedrolls, which basically are just rolled up blankets and such.
They set that up because you get up way earlier than that.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that's true, but anyway, that's what that picture is, and then the one on the right is just out there starting to do some work, and the next few I got here, these are some pictures of an actual chuck wagon. Everybody knows that the chuck wagon was, what was the guy on Rawhide? The old cook. Old cooks were always cantankerous and ornery in westerns as a rule. Two come to mind.
And they still are.
Two come to mind from me, and one of them was the guy on Rawhide. That old cook. And then there was one that was in some John Wayne movies.
And they look an awful lot like us.
And yeah, they do.
and then there was Mr. Nightlanger.
Yeah, there was him
on the Cowboys.
On the Cowboys. But
you
the chuck wagon,
put one slit to let out the steam, and two more because that's the way your mama did it.
That's the way your mama made. That's how you make pie.
Apple pie.
Apple pie, yeah, with a crust on top. And this particular chuck wagon had an add-on. They had a pup trailer that actually had a iron stove on it, which would have been really handy if you were a chuck wagon, if you were a cook, cattle drive cook. That reminds me of the one Kent Rollins has.
Yeah, so he puts his up in the wagon.
Yeah.
Old Bertha. And he used to unload it by himself. And the darn thing weighs like 400 pounds.
Yeah.
But he's beyond unloading it by himself now. But yeah, if you ever want to,
I know he got a new one. Does he have it on a pup trailer like this?
Maybe. If you ever want to see like an actual gosh darn like chuck wagon cook, watch his videos.
Yeah, Kent Rollins. You guys might have seen him or heard of him.
He has completely taught me how to cook.
Here, Tina says, I got to back up here a minute. Something about Charlie. Tina said that they were cantankerous because their food isn't edible and everybody complained about it, but they hated it. Well, now here, there's a story about that too, Tina.
This was salt, doesn't it?
Yeah, this used to go around every campfires when I used to be a camp cook all the time. We had this old gentleman, loved him to death. Mark knew him most of his life, early life. His name was Ken Sylvie. Ken Sylvie used to tell this story. He told it every time he came to camp when Nate was, and because he's about our age now, and he probably, just like us, he repeated himself. But Ken Sylvie always told a story about, cowboys out cooking or hunters. And, somebody always had to be the cook, which means you were always going to catch hell. So he made a rule that the first person that complained had to be the new cook. So he went like all week cooking and working, and nobody ever complained. And he started doing things deliberately, trying to, get somebody to complain so he could move on and not be the cook. And so finally he got tired. He said he just dumped like a whole can of salt in there because he knew that was going to somebody had to say something about that. And as they started eating, one guy spoke up and he said, "Woo-wee, this is salty, but that's just the way I like it." And that's the cowboy.
God, those eggs are salty, but that's just the way I like them.
So, you probably put up with a lot of that. This was a neat cook wagon. I didn't put it up here, but in the description of this particular chuck wagon, it had a table that came out on one end. That may be it in that lower picture, but it had a table on one end, and then this guy had a stove, which was, again, not common, but not completely rare either. But I didn't know this. I always wondered about some of this. You don't think about this when you're watching a TV or a Western. You see them all in their bedrolls, but where do they put their bedrolls? Because most of the time they were punching cattle, they don't have anything on their saddle. Larry, ropes and saddlebags,
They
maybe.
never have a pack horse with them. They never.
Right. So here's one way they did it. They loaded it all on top of the chuck wagon, which makes sense that they could do that.
Yeah, they were like a freight / kitchen.
Yeah.
Freight wagon / kitchen. That's what that setup was.
And these pictures are actual, honest to goodness, chuck wagon cowboy roundup stuff that they took and have got in the archives out there in northern Colorado. But also, then after that, I found some more pictures and on a website called I think it's Great Historical Photos or something like that. I've got it written down here. Oh no, one more. Wait a minute. This was also in the Colorado set, and in this particular photos, if you look close enough, you'll see that these cattle are horses. They're not cows. But this is something that also happened in some areas prior to the roundup, was they would go out and round up horses to get ready for their pack strings or their remuda.
The remuda.
Remuda, right? I'm saying
you'd bring the horses in, and then everybody threw a houlihan, which is this way and not this way. So when you want to catch a horse, you throw that way over your head, big loop, catch your horse, bring it out. I'm taking this one today. You might catch your whole string. And then, because like when you're roping a cow, you're swinging typically this way, not always, but typically. But horses get roped. They're tall. They're built different, and you rope with a houlihan.
Well, I just learned something because I did not know that. I didn't
And
know the difference.
You never heard, I'm riding old Paint, I'm leading old Dan, I'm off to Montana for the throw of the houlihan. There's another one of my 40.
I'll probably put that write that down. That goes on the record too.
But anyway,
no,
they're just gathering their string for like they're probably only catching a horse. They're catching one horse to ride that day, and then those horses will come with them, and somebody will be the
horse wrangler,
the horse wrangler, remuda man, Jingle Bob, whatever you want to call him. That'll keep the horses going with the cattle herd. And they'll go out and gather horses of an evening, way early of a morning, and bring them in to the Cowboys for the morning.
Hang on just a minute. I got to back.
Trying to catch up with what we got going on here.
Gabby Hayes. Yeah, Gabby Hayes was in a lot of westerns with other people too. What's this about? Somebody trying to kill him? Wishbone was from the Rawhide. That's right, cooking Rawhide. Cantankerous. Oh, okay, that's the one Tina said. Did you ever say why Stalin tried to kill him? Have him killed? I didn't. Which one are we talking about? Gabby Hayes or
who or John Wayne?
Yeah, probably because John Wayne was Americana.
Yeah, so it was John Wayne they tried to kill.
I can see that. I don't know anything about that. That sounds like a story for another day. I need to look up. Anyway, I've got the pictures back to the wrong place.
Backed up.
They also had horse gatherings where they would also get the new colts in and brand them sometimes, and And nowadays, of course, I've got a picture here in a minute of them bringing in colts and doing all the medical procedures that need to be done on young colts, be they a she colt or a he colt, and also vaccinating them and that kind of stuff. Kind of stuff you guys will do. We'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, so those things happen, and you always just see them gathering cattle, but horses played such a huge role in this. They didn't have ATVs to ride around back then.
Well, we don't either.
Well, I know you don't, but you know what I mean. Some people you see that sometimes. I've seen guys rounding up cows on ATVs. Now this
which is just not right in the head.
no, it ain't right. Nothing
It's
about
hard on the cattle, and it's not right in the head. I'm
just
sorry.
it's just something that people decide, hey, this ought to be good.
Horses are better for cattle, and wheeled vehicles making lots of noise is stupid.
I got a mustache hair. It's driving me crazy right here tonight. It's getting in my mouth. Just
well,
one.
that's appropriate.
Well, yeah, but it's just one. It's not the whole gang. It's just one hair. And then I got one tickle in my nose. Yeah, guys, I'm going to have to go get barber here. And then I found these pictures, and I got these from a site. Also, there's a link at the bottom of that page. Somebody let me know if it works or doesn't work.
Now, don't call a cowboy a dude.
No, that cowboy's not a dude, but this is about dudes. Hang on, bear with me a minute.
Oh, okay. I don't know where you're going with this, but
yeah, I have. I'll explain it.
Dudes aren't cowboys.
but dudes and dude ranches was a real thing at back in the early 1900s. I mean, people wanted to go.
Still is.
Oh, and it still is now. But I mean, it even was then, which I didn't. At one time I didn't think that was a thing, but it was. I thought it was a modern thing. Anyway, these photographs were taken in Montana. I don't know if I've got 1939. There you go. And there are real cowboys, but there are a group of people there. This is obviously a place where they let people come in and watch and or help and learn what it was all about. And those are the dudes. And then you got the real cowboys actually, doing most of the work, I'm sure. But anyway, that's what these photos are. And
we had that on last Saturday, and I'm sure it's going on today.
Did you guys had dudes helping you too? Well, yeah, you can almost say your nephew or your new nephew was a dude. I mean, he was brand new, never been on a horse before. Well,
but he, by God, he did good.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying he did.
He was a good dude.
Anyway, that's what these people. But this is again all about the cattle drive, and these people worked along with the cowboys, and and these pictures are just more. I mean, they're what happens at a cattle drive. You hook up these. That's a calf, but it's probably a little bit older calf.
That's a big. That's like a yearling.
Yeah.
So he roped it. So the guy on the horse has got that yearling roped, and those two other gentlemen are gonna go and tail it down and slap a brand on it,
and or whatever else they might be doing.
And ear notching and whatever else they're gonna do to it. Maybe tip its horns, whatever.
They might give shots. They may vaccinate them.
They're gonna be the tired boys at the end of the day. and there's like a hierarchy of stuff that you get to do when you get to be the guy horseback and roping. That's a less intensive job than being the guy on the ground.
Physically, at least.
And I graduated to that many years ago. So
you're old enough that you don't have to get off your horse.
I tell them I don't do nothing I can't do off the back of my horse.
Hey, welcome in. Mike Maple Bacon has arrived.
There's our Canadian brother.
We were talking about you earlier, well, a little bit. So anyway, these
But
are just
in a
photos
good way. But in a good way.
in a good way. These are all photos of what Mark did last week. I mean, basically, this is what same things are going on.
Looks like the same country.
Well, it's Montana. I don't remember if they said where in Montana. Now I have a question for you because I learned this researching this. This is something I never even thought of until yesterday, or no, not yesterday. One day this week. According to the all the this came with the documents. I mean, there's explanations and what's going on and all that written, and I've got them in the background here. But if you look at this setup, there's a whole rack of brands there.
Yeah, so they're gathering cattle on a big shared range. So that's my calf. That's my calf. This is my calf. That one's mine. That one's mine. They had all the brands for everybody. They were doing communal brandings.
Right. And I didn't know this, but according to this, the roper who brought the calf in was the guy responsible for telling the branders which brand to put on that calf.
Put a J cross on that one, put a Diamond H on that one, put a whatever on that one.
So you guys had to do the same? I mean, you were doing it the same way still?
No, we're the cattle up here. I don't know if it happens everywhere still, but up here, most of the cattlemen and women they bring their cows home and they're in fenced in pastures at home during the winter. And then they calf on the property. And then you just know like this is the only brand we have to work with. So, but some of the cattle we do, like I said, some of them are Diamond H cattle, some of them are J Cross cattle. They belong to the same people. Just two different brands. So Michael, my boss, herd boss, if you will, my boss on that ranch, he's got his own brand and then he's got the family brand. So his cows we brand with a J Cross and the family brand is a Diamond H.
Okay,
so,
I'm gonna have a little bit more to say about this, but this would be a good place to talk about it. And just so everybody, and so you know, branding cattle today, and I'm not talking about the physical act of it yet. I'm talking about the mark, a J Cross, a Diamond H. Those are all registered with the brand inspectors or the state. I think it depends on which state you're in now.
It's every state. Every state has its own brands, and it's a legal thing.
Yeah, it's a legal thing, and you have to brand your cattle. Mark was telling me in Wyoming, if you don't get them branded, and somebody gets out there and finds them on the range, if they're on the open range, and they find them, and they can brand them at certain points, they can brand them on their brand and take them. That's their cow then. So that's why it's important to get them branded early in the year and get your calves branded and make sure you keep your cattle. And I'm sure at one time or another that brought about a lot of shooting and that sort of thing in the Wild Wild West because they don't take too kindly to that, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in a minute. So hold off on your thoughts about rustlers.
You're going to talk to me about Mavericks.
A little bit. Well, yeah, we'll talk about that too. But anyway, that's what's going on here. And you can see that guy, if you look in the lower right, that guy's got a small fire, but it's a long fire. Looks like he's got a tree log there burning. And he's got, I don't know how many different brands laying in that fire.
He's heating up all those brands.
He's getting them all ready. And when they pull a calf over, in this case, the roper who brings the calf in is going to tell that guy which brand to pick up and what to brand that calf with.
And where it goes.
And where it goes. That's important also. All this stuff is legally important when it comes to cattle. And this is still the same way today as it was in 1939 or 1899. You might think that this is gone and this is not a big deal anymore, but it's still a big deal for cattle.
Yeah, because people steal stuff.
People still, dang it, I put that picture in there twice. Now, in this picture, you can see some of the dudes. The dudes are dressed a little bit differently than the Cowboys. And looks like you've got a woman helping out there, which not necessarily makes her a dude. You guys have women that work, you've had women that work cattle with you, I believe, or ranch owners or whatever.
Yeah, all the time.
But you got a calf down here in the lower left. These guys got a branding iron in his hand.
Some of them are way handy.
Yeah. And another thing that happens during this process could be, here's where we need the permission slips, castration. Because, this is how baby bulls got turned into baby steers. It's usually when this happened. Which brings me to a question I've been meaning to ask you all week. Did these guys save all the mountain oysters?
We eat them every year.
I wondered about that.
We save them all, and I mean, unless the dog grabs one out of your hand or something.
I've read,
which happens.
I know in some ranches, but it might even be sheep herders. So pardon me for saying that, using that term.
The sheep fries are wonderful.
And sometimes they'll have somebody right there on the spot that cooks them up, and the Cowboys eat them while they're at. I don't know. What do you call it?
I have seen. So when I brand for more traditional ranches, because the photos you're going to have are like, we're not roping and dragging them like they've done for a gazillion years. We're bringing them in and running them up on a branding table.
Yeah, I think I've got one or two pictures that show that.
When we're roping and dragging them like they're doing here in these photos, I've seen little kids like take the testicles and just throw them on a branding pot and let them fry around a little bit and then eat them like candy. So, it's usually little kids that are doing that, but
yes, Carol, this is where we need permission. Check, please, ladies and friends. The hall monitors will be checking your pass to make sure you have a signed permission slip to talk about testicles and castration here.
But you castrate a bull calf so he's not a bull, because they get big and mean, and he puts on more weight, more beef weight, being a steer.
Right.
And that's the whole purpose of it. And it's happened for as long as human beings have been doing animal husbandry.
Yeah,
it's always happened.
When you castrate a young bull calf, he'll gain a lot more weight in that first year or two than he would as a bull. Now, if you leave him alone and leave him, he may get to be a gigantic bull, but by the time he gets to that size, and I can tell you this because I've eaten it, they're old and tough and sinewy, and you don't want it.
He ain't fit to eat, and he's mean, and he's breeding your cows, and you don't want him breeding your cows. You want that other bull that you went and bought at the sale that was a good bull. So these guys, the folks I work with, they actually go to Canada and buy bulls
for breeding bulls.
And, yeah, there's some big Hereford, because they're running Herefords, and they go up to Canada and buy bulls up in Canada from Alberta, I think is where they go. And and they make a beautiful calf.
I've always thought Herefords were. I've known people that raise Herefords, and I always thought Hereford. I'm going to say this, and then you're going to say, "Well, you don't have them." I've always thought Herefords were good bulls and good cattle for this kind of thing. Nowadays,
They're
I
they're tamer
well,
than Angus cattle.
around here, Angus cattle have become the thing. You don't
Well, they are out here too.
because
Most
everybody's got it in their head that Angus beef tastes better, and it really, to
and,
me, it ain't no different than the other.
and the thing is that they'll sell cattle, and if it's marbled right, if the meat's marbled right, Herefords, they'll register them as Angus beef.
Don't they call them? Isn't that like a red Angus, or they have
No,
no? They just call them
it's
Angus.
just about the beef.
Yeah,
It's
I worked with a guy a few
it's
years
got
ago.
nothing to do with the breed of cow. It's got to do with the quality of the
Right.
meat. And so they can literally market Hereford cattle as registered Angus beef.
Okay. See, I worked
And
with a guy who had cattle, and he
I
raised.
know a lot of registered Angus breeds that are I wouldn't eat. You couldn't pay me enough to eat them.
That could be too. The guy I worked with, he went to the feed. He typical thing some people do around here. You go to the feedlot or the stock show that they have here monthly, or maybe even bi-weekly or whatever, and they buy up a bunch of young steers, and
Right.
they put them out in their field, feed them, get them up to weight, and then they'll sell them in the fall as for beef weight, which is a term when you're doing for meat, raising them for meat, and he said it had gotten to the point where he used to raise here more Herefords, but he said it had gotten to the point that everybody wants Angus beef. So if they think you're not raising Angus, some people think it's not as good or you can't get the same price for it. And that is, like you said, that's not always the case. But
Yeah, I
that's
mean we'll ship cattle to Nebraska, and they're red cows on the hoof. I mean they're live when they go there to the feedlot,
right.
and because of the quality of the beef, they get sold as registered Angus, and they're not.
Interesting.
They got nothing to do with being an Angus. They're Herefords, but it's just how you treat your livestock, and how they're
Well, how they're raised, what they
how
eat.
they're raised, and how much food they're getting, and whether they're tough as wet leather like old range cow, or if they're like they've been pastured and taken really good care of, or whatever.
Yeah, and if you take this conversation, and I don't know enough about it to talk much about it, but I can say a little bit. And if you take it all the way up to the far end of it, and you get into what are the Japanese beef?
Oh hell.
There's two different types now, I think, but they raise those cattle, literally eating things like and drinking beer and doing things that make
Starts with a W. I
starts with a
think.
W. One of them does. Wagyu, yeah, Wagyu.
Wagyu beef.
And those cattle don't even. I'm not even sure they get out of the stalls, or they don't get. They're not range cattle. And Kobe, that's the other one I was trying to
Kobe or Wagyu, and they don't
It's raised different altogether.
the cows that I've worked live a pretty darn good life.
Yeah, well, they do.
And they're out free and roaming and being a cow.
How many? We talked about bulls a little bit. Let's take
Because
this,
I mean, we move them 30 miles every year. It's like,
and that's a 1 day. Is that a pretty much a 1 day cattle drive for you
well,
guys?
when the yeah, and your horse runs 40 miles or 50 miles, but
Yeah,
it's when we bring them home in the wintertime, when you open the gates at the upper place up on the mountain, they want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long day.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
that's a
sure.
long day of horseback, and I've literally been frozen to my seat, my
Yeah.
saddle. I couldn't get down one day. I was like, "What the heck is going on?" And it had been sleeting and snowing and whatever on us all day long, and I literally couldn't get out of my saddle.
Oh, geez.
I,
I
I
believe that.
I had to have the ranch owner come over and grab me and pull me off
Break
my
you
saddle, and
loose.
he tore my jeans when he did it.
Oh, gee. I've actually been on a motorcycle, a little different than a horse, but riding in that kind of weather a little bit and get ice around my seat on the saddle where I'm attached to it, but not that bad. But I can see how that can happen.
Well, I mean, if you're in the saddle for like a 15-hour day and you're just going to get froze in there eventually.
And here we got some dudes. I think probably I'm gonna say a fresh brand. It may not be, but there you can see the big brand on the rump of that calf. And this lady, and she may be a dude or she may be a ranch owner. I have no idea, or a daughter or whatever. But she's giving him a little bit of water there to help him out. And this goes back again to the.
I think she's probably treating him for scours, actually.
Oh well, maybe I don't know. I have that. So that's an oral medicine,
Yeah. I
huh?
think
I
I
didn't.
think
I
I
figured they
think
get
she's
off.
medicating him, and I bet she's not a dude.
May not.
She's got that calf stretched out, got her leg in the right place,
Well, yeah,
pulling
sure.
pulling that hind leg up so they could slap a brand on it, and then giving it some medicine there.
And then back to the horses again. This is just part. This is from that same group of cowboys or the ranch where that's at in Montana. And these guys were bringing in their string or muted string, and they're showing a little bit of work that they. Again, I said that earlier. I said they bring in young fillies and colts and kind of do the same way they do with the cattle. I mean, you castrate young stallions or stud horses to make them geldings, which is usually makes them a hell of a lot better horse, to be honest. But stallions, you hear stuff people talking in the movies or songs about somebody riding a stallion or a white stallion or a stud horse like Tennessee stud. Most of the time you didn't want a stud horse or a stallion to ride. They're just too crazy. It's
Yeah,
like,
but
it's like
Dad always preferred riding a stud horse.
yeah, he had that Appaloosa stud.
Well, he over the years he had probably a dozen of them, and he rode stud horses, and I wouldn't give you 50 cents for all of them. I mean, he rode them just fine, but
I don't know.
and I'm weird too because I like to ride mares, and most guys like to ride geldings.
Tina and Kay are talking about a program. Some cattle who were fed Jack Daniel's sour mash, and that's possible. I have heard of something similar to that too.
They most of those places like the mash goes to cattle feed
After it's been run through
after
the
it's
mill.
been through its whole process.
Yeah.
Then the mash itself goes to cattle feed.
So anyway, this is more of that work, and this is on young horses in this particular case. And here's a guy fixing up vaccinations or some kind of medicine. That's why I said I didn't realize they gave some of it orally. Um, that's a big old needle there. And one of these guys has got a bottle. You can see a small bottle of medicine there, but I've seen great big bottles of it too. Uh, Whether it's worming medicine or for some other. They actually mentioned something in this article about blackleg,
Yeah,
and they were talking about some of these vaccinations were for that.
that's a real common disease for in cattle in the South.
Is it more in the South? Okay.
Yeah, we don't really have it up here. We got other things we have to deal with, brucellosis and things like that. But
Now,
I wanna address a comment that Kay and Tina are going back and forth about rare or
oh, medium
medium,
rare.
and I just say if it doesn't make your baked potato bloody, it's overdone.
It's overdone. Well, that's a good way to look at it.
That's the way I look at it.
I like rare
My
meat,
my
but I don't like
dad, but my father wants it like cooked till it's like gray and yucky.
like leather. Brenda's mom's that way too. She wants any
He
piece of beef she eats
he
cooked to
want he sent back. I took him to my favorite restaurant in Chugwater, Wyoming, and he sent back the steak because it was a little pink inside, and I'm like, to me, the steak was overdone. The pink meat, I'm like, I wanted a little more red. And my wife eats rare meat, and I mean, that's how we cook it. If I am paying attention to the grill.
Yeah. I wanted to point these guys, well, not the guy on the right so much, but the guy on the left has got an old movie camera. Um, when I was in high school, I would change subjects, but that's an old camera. When I was in high school, I shot football team videos for Crockett every week, every Friday night, and we had a camera not a whole lot more modern than that one right there.
Ah, ah, ah.
You wound it up between plays. It had enough. One wind would get you through basically one play. Usually, the coaches got madder than hell if you missed the end of the play sometimes, though, but you couldn't help it. But that's what we had to wind the camera between. Remember to wind it and run it, and then a whole football game used to take us like 9 rolls of film to shoot. So we also had to change film in between plays sometimes. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out because this guy was mentioned as the photographer, and I don't know his name. But this whole thing was done so they could document a lot of this stuff, and so this guy or somebody like him had a still camera and then a video camera, or not a video camera, a film movie camera back then. They didn't. I don't think they referred to it as video at all. I just noticed Mark, that
And
guy.
he was a cowboy. And say it with me, people. If you want to know how to say the leather leggings that he's got on his legs, say it with me. It's not chaps, it's shaps.
Chaps, yeah.
With an S. Shaps.
That's what they're called.
If you ever want to be referred to as a dude when you show up to a ranch and you want your chaps, they'll like, oh, you're a dude.
I just noticed something, Mark. Look at that photo, if you can see it. The guy standing there with a cup in his hand that looks like a cowboy. Look at that on his belt. He's got a pin for something, and that's got to be a tool he's using. I mean, or maybe
He's got a hoof knife on his belt.
Maybe that's what it is. Okay.
So he's got a hoof knife on his belt right there, and then he's got a horseshoe in his hand, and a cup of some kind. I don't know what he'd be using that for, but he's a farrier. He's got a hoof knife and a horseshoe. He's putting shoes on.
Okay.
Or he's just a cowboy that's putting shoes on.
So I mean, but he's got I just noticed the tool on the belt and stuff. I didn't catch that earlier. Oh, and that right down below that in the lower right hand corner down here is a milk can. In case some of you never worked on a milk farm where they milk cattle, and actually put it. This is what we used to have to load milk when my grandparents had their dairy farm. They would fill this kind of a milk can up every day, and we'd put the lid on it, and take it down to the road, and then the milk truck would come pick it up and
And
take.
he's at the chuck wagon, looks
Yeah,
like.
looks like he is. I think he's getting a drink of water probably, but he's like you said, he's been working. I mean, hell, you can tell. Pardon me, you can tell by looking at him, he's been working. He's dirty. That clean
He,
cowboys aren't working.
he looks like he's been branding and stuff,
Yeah,
wrestling calves
and I put this one in there. This was the last one.
singing Cowboys.
Little entertainment around the campfire at night there. And I think the next photos, I'm going to wait just a moment because let me see here. I can tell. I think the next ones are some Mark. Yeah. Well, no, not the very next one. So I can move on one more. This is again those kind of pictures from the first ones. And I found this photograph down to the lower right. And I thought, wow, there's a good picture of a roundup. That's a big roundup. And it turned out that this is in Ecuador. I think about Brazil having cattle, but I never really thought about Ecuador doing this. But evidently, they do, and this is how they gather them, just like we do up here.
They sure got a lot of. They got a lot of hands, though.
Yeah, they got a lot of hands. I noticed that too. And the thing at the top left,
way more than we'd ever have.
it says Florida Cracker Roundup. Well, that is an actual event that they still hold every year in Central Florida to both celebrate this and they probably still round up cattle too. I mean, cowboys and cattle in Florida is or was recently the highest beef producing state in the union. It's hard, you don't think about that because you think about Texas or Montana or Wyoming or some places like that raise a lot of cattle, but Florida is or was at least the number one beef producing state in the country, which I thought was wild. I mean,
and so Central Florida, I mean, they're eating it up, and modern society is eating it up, but there's a ton of big ranches in Florida.
Yeah. If you really drive around Florida, you folks that like to go to Disney, if you get out of Disney area in the main city, you can find these. They're still out there, and I just never thought about Florida as being a cattle state, but it is. I mean, I've known it is for a long time, but growing up and in my early 20s and 30s and maybe even near 40, I never thought about Florida as a cattle raising state, but it's a big deal down there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, just here recently, they produce more cattle in Florida than any other state in the union.
Yeah. So now we're going to move out to Wyoming here and talk a little bit about the real, honest to God cowboy roundup with somebody we all know and love here. Mr. Wilford Brimley. Riding his favorite pony,
Honeycomb.
Honeycomb.
And Wilford Brimley.
And Mark talked about, and I'll say it
That's
wrong.
twice I've been called that in my life.
I looked at that picture and I said, you could almost say he looks just like Wilford Brimley, pretty darn close. That you're wearing a different kind of shafts.
I'm wearing what you would call a chink or chinks. They only come down to just below your knees.
I have to ask.
And the shaps, the full length shaps are really, really good in brush country with thorns.
Okay, that was my
like
question.
if you're cowboying in Texas or New Mexico or Arizona, you need shaps on because otherwise you're going to have your lower legs are going to be full of thorns. And we don't need them up here. So we wear just what they called chinks, and that's probably some kind of reference to Chinaman's clothes or something from the old days, but and then if you go to the Great Basin West, like Nevada, California, a lot of that part of the world, they wear a short shaft called an armida. A whole different version of the chink. But yeah, I got great big old tall boots on and chinks, and if I even hit some brush that had thorns on it, it wouldn't bother me. But
leather's good for that.
and of course, my boots are outside my britches, which is appropriate. So
I guess that would be when you're working cattle. I just realized that I did when I first didn't look at that close enough before. I thought that was your britches on your boot, but that's not. That's a tall boot, isn't it?
that's my boots that go all the way to my knees. So,
And
which are harder for me to get on now than they used to be.
I bet.
And then that's my son. So I'm sitting on a saddle I built there, and then that's my son getting ready to get on another saddle I built.
So and that's Sammy.
That's Sammy, and he just looks like a Mexican sheep herder or something.
I noticed he doesn't wear a cowboy hat very often. If ever, I don't know. I mean,
he does, but not as often as I do. So, but there ain't nothing wrong with that. It's just
which horse?
His ears are more whole than mine are, so he's had less sun on his ears than I have.
Gotcha. Which horse was he riding? That's one of his horses, right?
Yeah, he's riding a walking horse named Gus.
Gus, that's Gus. Okay.
Yeah, and Gus is a little bit lame, and I think his left back leg, and we went out and gathered, and of course he fell in the creek and and just and then he was done for the day. Like you're done for the day, dude. But I still had a leg on my horse, so. But I didn't get down till cow working was done.
So you sat in that seat for 10 hours?
No, it wasn't near that long. We went out and gathered cattle out of the pasture to the east to the right of where I'm sitting. And it might have been 3 or 4 hours.
That's still a long time to be in the saddle if you're not used to it. Well, even if you are used to it, but. And here we got some more. I don't think this is. Oh, this might be a video. Let me see if this one. Oh, no. Back. Well, that one will play. Huh. Who is this young man, Mark? You don't have to tell his last name, just his first name if you want to. Or do you know?
I don't even know his first name. I know whose grandson he is.
Well, I know he
belongs to a guy named George C. That's his grandson, and he was a top hand, and 12 years old, maybe 13.
Probably been doing it his whole life, basically.
He was handy. It was good to have him there.
Hey, cowboy.
Hey, cowboy. I'm sure he liked that. And there we got another little video that Maestro Mark took here on the back of his pony.
But I was bouncing around on my horse trying to get gathered.
Damn.
We're going the wrong direction, dude.
Hang on. I mean, I'm going forwards and I want to go backwards. Hang on.
Go
now.
back one more. You skipped over one before that. And one, now you're going the wrong way again.
There.
Right there.
There. That's where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And this, if this is a video down here in the corner, I can't play. It's not a video.
So
This
that, I don't think that's a video, it's just a photo. That's what, if you talk to a cowboy, I haven't seen a lot of interstate, but I've looked at a lot of country over the years of my horse. That's it.
That's it.
And then that's Sam and Brandon, my nephew, right there riding.
In the middle.
Yeah,
Brandon.
that's Brandon's first time horseback since he was like 5 years old.
Well, I got tell me something on the photo on the left, which I guess is you.
Yeah, that's me.
What is this right here around that I see around the horse's neck or the in front? Looks like it's outside.
That's just my McCarty range.
So that is
So I ride my horses in a hackamore. I don't put a bit in their mouth. I ride them on a hackamore. And they've got a bow saw around their nose, which is the braided part that goes around their nose. And then you have a 22 foot to 24 foot long rope, basically, that is tied to the bottom of the heel knot of the bow saw, and you can make a loop and then a lead rope, and that's what that is. And then
is that a rope that's covered or is that a braided? What's that made out of that I see right here? Alpaca for wool.
Yep. So they make them. The traditional ones were made out of horsehair, and I have horsehair McCartys, but or as a American cowboy would call it, a McCarthy.
Yeah.
But they're that alpaca fur is way nicer on your hands than a horsehair McCarty is.
I never thought about that. That'd make a difference. I could see why that
makes a huge difference.
And I mean, if you look at Sammy's horse there in the middle picture, he's the guy in the red and black plaid jacket or shirt jack or whatever that is. He's riding what looks to me like a.
I think he's got a boussaw on that horse.
Actually, it does look like a boussaw. Yeah, but the reins look more like just a rope.
They're made out of climbing rope.
Okay, because they're not like yours.
Nope, not near as cool as mine.
Actually, what's it? Brandon's riding. Is that a boussaw?
Brandon's riding a hackamore horse too.
Yeah, look, that's what I was thinking.
And I'm not sure what that one's made out of, but it all just depends on how roughed up your hands you want to get. You know, if you put a horsehair McCarty on, which is the traditional spelling from Mexico.
Mexico, yeah.
That's who they invented it. If you use a McCarty, if it's horsehair, it's just rougher on your hands. And my hands are rough enough as it is. I don't need extra roughness. And then on I don't know which side of the screen it would be. It's on my right.
It's on the right.
There's a calf being branded on a branding table.
That's what you call a branding table. I was going to point that out.
Yeah, so you run the calf up a chute. That table tilts, so it's standing up straight. It'd be completely like 90 degrees from that. You run the cap in there, it's a little squeeze chute, and then you just slap hot iron on, and takes a few seconds, and away they go.
Yeah, and then
a minute, they act like nothing ever happened to them. So
That
people think it's cruel, and it ain't cruel. Hell, I've had it touched to me more times than I can even count.
that would burn like hell in your
and,
case.
and it ain't no big deal. I got a big burn right here on the end of my index finger right now from that. So
Let me talk about just a minute about this table. I used to build these things. Only ours didn't.
seriously,
Yeah, ours didn't rotate though back then. Uh, we called them squeeze gates or squeeze chutes, like you just said. And now you see them everywhere. But in the mid 70s, at least back east, they weren't that common. And
right?
we started making them in welding shop with Pat. He brought one in from somewhere.
Really?
Yeah. Somebody knew what they were and they wanted some made. So they brought one in and we measured it and took everything. We started building them. But ours didn't flip. But we had them that did several things. Some of them we had the gates would open on one side or part
Right.
of the gate would open, not as fancy as some. I see some today on TV and in different things that are just just do all kinds of stuff. Ours were pretty basic, but it's got in the front, it squeezes the neck, not doesn't squeeze them as in, well, the neck doesn't choke them, but it holds them. And then the side, you see the bars there, it just holds them in place. And in this case, they did something in lever of some sort and flip it over on its side so they can do the work, branding, probably castoration in that chute, give them a shot if they need to, rotate it back down, and off they go. Now
Yeah.
I've worked.
So we brand them, castrate, ear notch, give them vaccines, give them oral medicines, and then tilt it back up. It flips like toward me, like toward your view, and then open the head catch and away they go.
Tina, that's a good question, and I got a couple of photos about that just in a minute. But Mark can go ahead and address it if you want to, Mark. She's asking if many ranches do freeze brands now with their cattle.
No, not cattle. Freeze branding is very common with horses.
Right. And
In my experience, freeze branding is very common with horses. It is almost non-existent with cattle.
I think it would be hard to do.
When you have 500 of those little red devils that you got to deal with during the day, you're not going to do freeze brands.
It takes
longer. It's a longer process.
And I've got photos of it here just in a minute. I included that so we could talk about it.
So that calf that's laying outside there that's getting branded, that's the legal spot that brand has to go on that calf. Has to go on its left side on the rib cage. Some calves have to be branded on the left side on their rump. Some have to be branded on the other side. And that always boogers you up when you got multiple folks with multiple cows
with different branding,
different brands and
positions or whatever.
Some of the brandings I've been to where we were roping and dragging calves and kids were doing all the branding and the wrestling and all that stuff. You like you said earlier, you got to tell them like you need to flip that over on the other side and brand it on the right hip, whatever,
Yes. And I assume in that case the roper would be getting that information.
And that's and like I said, and like you said, that's a legal requirement.
Yeah, I've got some more information about that too, just in a minute. And this thing about branding is such a big deal that, like in Wyoming, and probably all states, if I'm honest, but certainly out west.
All the western stuff, everything west of Mississippi, you got to be branding your cattle.
And they all have, and they all have their own set of statutes and laws. I mean, it's interesting and complicated. I mean, there's a lot to it, and I'm going to get to that just in a moment.
And
So
the brand book in Wyoming is about this flipping. I can't.
that's close.
That flipping thick.
I like that.
And yeah, it's. And people are like, well, why don't you just ear tag them? Well, we do. We put an ear tag in them that says, I'm from this mama, and I was born this month and this year. And I probably had my bangs vaccine. and it's just like, you can't mark them up too much. You got to do something. And yeah.
Well, and the brand, in most cases, like you're talking about, the brand is more, that's who owns the cow. That's
who owns the cow. Nobody can steal that cow and take it to the sale barn and sell it. Unless they've got a good running iron.
Which we'll talk about in just a moment. Does anybody use like ID tags under the skin like they do with pets now? Does anybody do that?
Not that I know of.
Because you could put all that.
I couldn't even imagine the cost of that. But
well, I don't know. But it seems I don't know. It seems to me like
they're in business to sell cattle for beef, and I can't even imagine what that would cost them. But
well, that could be. So anyway, moving down to the next couple more pages, we got these two little videos. I've already seen the Hey Cowboy.
Yeah, you didn't.
Cowboy. Hey Cowboy. And this one is, Mark took this one on the back. I think, yeah, you took this on the back of your horse.
I was on the back of my horse.
So you had to adjust his camera.
And it's a poor video because I was worried more about working cows.
But there's the cows, and they're working. You can see the calves in there amongst them, and you hear them. Imagine what that'd be like if it was 2,000 head of cattle. Come on. Come on.
And I'm riding what you would call drag.
At the back, basically.
And if you ever want to see what real cowboying's like, you go to a Charlie Russell painting called Into the Alkali. I bought a print of that painting for my father. I'm like, here, this is what it's really like, Dad.
Yeah, look that up. You'll see what he's talking about.
Into the Alkali.
In fact, I'll pull that up in a minute. Let me see if I can. I'm not going to show it yet.
You're going to commit some kind of a YouTube breach thing.
I think I'm okay on this. Just to show I think.
It's one of my favorite paintings, and it's just exactly what it's like.
I don't know if this is the whole thing or not, but I'll
bringing cattle home. That's exactly what it's like.
I'll show it in a minute. I'm not gonna pull it up yet. I mean, I'm gonna pull it up here, so I've got it. I don't know if this is the whole picture, but I'll show it. That's not a good one. That's too small. Okay, here's one. All right, I'll show that in a minute because I don't want to mess up the show, but we'll talk about that again. So anyway, I'll go to the next one here. Oh,
hey, Cowboy.
That ain't one. Now let's talk about branding a little bit more. That these are two. I don't know about that. I'm not sure what the right one's called. Mark might know. Could be a lazy E, could be a big E, could be an underbar E, or I don't know how they describe it. But the one in the middle is one of the ones Mark's been working with. That's a Diamond H.
I put that brand on.
And that calf is in the chute or in the table, as you called it, and he's being held in place so they can do this work while they're sitting there. Look at I'm impressed by that's he's wooled up for winter, cold weather. His hair, that's a winter coat. Looks to me like that's not summer coat on that calf.
Well, it ain't summer here yet.
I know that's what I'm getting at. It's obvious that it's not. Now the one on the one on the right, far left, excuse me. Let's see if I can. I got to pull this up and get the name. Try to get the name right. Well, I don't have it here, but it's what's important about this brand is everything on here means something. And well, obviously it means something. It's initials or a ranch name, but how that K is made is important. How that C is made is important. How the other K is important. And this one was called something like large. They called it large K, little CK, or something like that ranch. And dang it, I got that written down. I must put it in my other notes. I got to start making sure I bring those up. But anyway, and then the one on the right is another example of a brand. I don't know what that particular one is. I may even be
That's a tough one right there. That
it could even be it may even be an M. I don't know, but depending on how you
I don't know that I've ever seen a brand that complicated. But
well, that's just one they had. It's an old one. You can tell it's rusty. It probably hadn't been used lately. But anyway, those are examples. And then here is just the basic set of the laws. And I put the link in there. If anybody wants to go back and look at it, you can get an idea of just what the laws are. This was Nevada, I believe. And this talks all about what open range means and how about branding cattle, and that it's important. And it's a law in our Nevada something S. I can't remember what they stand for. 564025, branding or marking of all animals grazing on open range required. Application for temporary use of brand recorded or registered in another state exception. So I mean, there's just, and it goes on, and I just put this in there because there's pages of this. This is really, there's a lot to this.
Yeah, this is like that's like nothing. Their whole books of regs on.
Yeah, it's amazing, and they change regularly. So something could change just from year to year. Now maybe not, but they could. Now here's an example about a freeze branding. One method of freeze brand, at least, and that upper one is a sheep they're doing a freeze brand on. There is a cattle with a freeze brand on its butt. And then there's a horse down there with a freeze brand up along just under its mane. What else I wanted to show about this picture was that all that information that's in the middle, sometimes they do brands like this, and each one of those marks means something, like year of birth, uh, registration number, just all kinds of stuff. And then there's the freeze mark range that for different states that you could, like in this one, Wyoming was 800,001 to 800,008 or 880,000 was the range number for Wyoming brands of this nature. And there's an example of some on the right and how they look when they're done: 1 minute, 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and 8 weeks. And what the other thing you have to remember is these brands are not just important while the cattle are alive. This brand is actually shows up on the inside of the hide, the skin, and that's important too, because that has to be checked when they go to slaughter sometimes, maybe all the time. Now, we talked about, Mark mentioned a running iron, and this has to do with
There's old cinch ring. You can modify that brand with that cinch ring.
See, these parts right here could be hidden in a saddle. If you were a cattle rustler,
or they were on your saddle,
or they were, yeah, that's what I meant. They were on your saddle. They look normal. They don't look like This is how they hid them so that they weren't so obvious because you didn't want to get caught with a running iron. That usually almost always meant you were stealing cattle. So they made running irons that could do different kinds of things. Now, the ones on the right could be real brands, or again, they're brands made to modify other brands so that you can make it look like your brand. But if you look in that left hand pictures, you can see that that one buckle and a couple of pieces of metal or iron rod, and you can adjust that to make all kinds of different brands. Like Mark said, they would take the centering off their saddle, and you could heat that centering up and move it, roll it around, and make different shapes for brands. And that's how cattle thieves remark the cattle so it looks like it's theirs. And you see this in the movies and on cowboy westerns all the time, but it really is a thing. And it really
Well, I know a guy. I know a guy that knocked out another guy. Well, the guy I knew is passed, but the guy that he knocked out is still alive.
yeah, that's one of your neighbors, wasn't it?
And he he walked to the door and knocked on the door, and the rustler basically opened the door and he knocked him out cold. And when he came to, he just pointed at him and gave him the knife hand, probably like, you know what this is for, and I know what this is for, and it better never happen again. And that's a real deal.
Tina was laughing. Because when you said a minute ago, it's still winter out there. Well, it is. It's summer don't come till July.
It says, I'm not surprised that Mark knows a guy.
He knows some guys that did other things too. I'll tell you. I've known a couple of
I know some guys.
When you work, I don't know if it's just working outdoors or if it's just, I mean, in your case, because you've been around cattle a lot, but you've also been, these guys from your wildlife days because you often were on their properties.
Yeah.
Or on property.
They were my landowners.
Yeah, your land. My landowners were guys, but they were hillbillies guys.
You know some guys too.
I know some guys too, and my guys would put sneaking cattle onto federal land for or they were cutting down federal trees. My guys wrestling trees.
Making some federally illegal moonshine,
or building a house where they weren't supposed to. I mean, things like that. We could talk about that, I'm sure, for days or weeks. But anyway, rustling cattle was its own kind of art. Is its own kind of art, and being able to duplicate brands enough to at least get by on a glance. Now, the key to this is once that cow gets slaughtered and that hide gets taken off the cow's body, then you can tell the brands are still there.
Like the original brand will still be on the inside of the hide. And
you can tell the difference, so it's stolen at that point. Now, I don't know I can't remember what's left. Not much, I don't think. The end. And I used a Holstein cow, sorry. Everybody thinks about Holstein. Well, if you know anything about cattle and farms, most people think about Holsteins as milk cattle, and they are. They're great milk producers. But probably half the hamburger you eat in this country these days comes out of a Holstein cow. At least back, I used to see a lot of them run through the slaughterhouse. It's common. But anyway, that's that about that. Now let me close that. I want to show you the picture that Mark was talking about just a minute ago through the alkali. So
you didn't read the poem.
Oh, I forgot the poem. Okay. The poem is going to come.
You didn't read my cowboy poetry.
I forgot the poetry. Oh my word! I can't believe I forgot that. Oh my never. Okay, we're going to do that. But let me throw Charlie Russell up here just so I don't forget him.
Okay.
And then that's the wrong picture. Dang it. This thing.
Because it described my experience on last Saturday very well.
Exactly. And that's why I made sure that I put it up here. Come
I
on.
said I got a new hobby. I'm going to write poems. I got a new one I'm working on about snake hunting.
Write it down, buddy. Don't forget. Right, that's the key to these.
I'm not forgetting it.
Oh, I know you're not. I'm just reminding. This is that picture.
That's
but
it.
can
you zoom in on it a little bit?
Well, I don't know if there it's a little bit bigger.
There
I
you
think
go.
it's much bigger. I was looking for a bigger, version of it. But you can see that guy's wearing a bandana, and that's not because he's stealing cattle or robbing the stagecoach. That's to keep dust out of his mouth and his nose.
Exactly. Into the alkali.
Into the alkali. That's
I love that. I love that painting. It's the most cowboy thing I've ever seen.
and you see sometimes in movies, and a lot of times it might be the new guys that got to ride drag, had to ride drag all day, and you'd be behind. Let's say you just had Mark's herd 500 cows, and you were going through alkali desert or really dry country. You're just going to be covered in dirt and dust when you get through at the end of the day, because that's just what you do. That's
Well, and having done many of it, you just ride where you need to be. You just go where you need to be. So nobody rode drag all day. You went where you needed to be. Like, oh, there's cows squirting out that way. I need to go back and help my buddy get them gathered up or whatever. And it's just how it worked.
but that comes in time and knowledge of what you're knowing what you're doing, or somebody's telling you go do
Yeah,
that.
it wasn't like two guys got assigned to ride drag. There might be 8 of you back there at some point.
Yeah, true.
Just because things were happening.
But that's what he was. That's what he was talking about there. Now, what the thing I forgot? That's I can't believe I forgot.
My goodness! Oh my goodness gracious, guys!
Happening there.
we got. Well, Mama's heading kind of sort of toward the door, but maybe not. And they all think they're going outside for a big explore.
Tina, this isn't a song; it's a record. I mean, it's a poem. It's a poem, and I can't believe
You
I
could
don't.
make it into a song, maybe.
You could.
My
Yeah.
buddy Creekmore said I needed to put it into stanzas. And I'm like, what's a stanza?
What's a stanza? Okay, let me see where I put that. I got that here. I put it on something so I could shut, and I can't believe I did. I meant to put it right at the very first.
I got it right here if you need
it.
it.
Just recite it. You got it right there. Just go ahead. Mark, this is Mark's. Mark, I can attest to the fact that he came up with this the other day on the phone, as he and I were talking about something.
Who did I send it to?
Huh? You sent it to me. I don't know who else has got it.
I'm trying to decide. I don't know.
What? Wait a minute. You're trying to decide what?
Okay. Here it is. I'm going to read it, and I apologize.
No. I'm gonna make you big screen too.
No, you ain't. Don't make me big screen.
Make you big screen like you don't want to be the big screen.
No, that'll be fine right there.
This is this is normal.
I wrote this after Saturday. I wrote this. Has you ever punched a cow? It'll hurt more later than it does right now. I'm a grizzled old cowboy, and I know a little stuff like spitting out your chaw if you take a little snuff. Mama, she won't like it. She won't like it a bit. And it don't go down with bread. Mama will not like it. She might smack you on your head. I'm a grizzled old cowboy. I've seen the bear and owl. I still think that I'm 17.
Oh no! Oh no! He got cut off, guys. I'm sorry. Hang on a minute. I have his poem right here. I'll just have to pull it up. Maybe I can finish it if he don't get back on here. That's disturbing. Up there he comes. Let me get him back on. There you go. Up there you go. Sorry, you
I don't
disappeared.
know what the heck's happening with this thing today.
Yeah, you just popped off.
I
You
don't
want
know where I cut off. I'm a grizzled
well,
old cowboy. And
you'd seen the bear and the
I've
owl.
seen the bear now, and I still think I am 17. And sometimes I still howl. But the bones and joints are creaking, and I have trouble getting on my horse. But I'll keep riding because I'm a cowboy, of course. A poem.
A poem. Man, you got to say that. A poem by
A
Mark
poem.
Mark E. Zorns, Esquire, ranch owner, ranch hand. That's an honest to goodness Mark Zorn's original. I can tell you that's fresh off the ink. It's still not dry on that.
It ain't even dry.
I did that last week. In the last week is when that was written.
Because you called me a grizzled old cowboy on.
Yeah.
When I sent you that photo, you're like, well, there's a grizzled old cowboy. And I'm like, oh, I'm writing a poem about that one.
Yep. Well, I was saying that because you were talking about not getting on and off the horse.
I was so stiff and sore.
Carol was accusing me of censoring you. I was not. I don't know who's winning and losing here. I'm way off on the conversation.
And now we can add a music writer to your album.
So yeah, you can do what do they call that? Word jazz, or you can do spoken.
Yeah, whatever they do.
You can do that without music. So we can put that on your KTEL.
My KTEL album of 40 hits.
Tina says get a music writer now and work it out with them, and you can put it on the album. You could turn it into a song, that's for sure. That's an original, though. I can absolutely, positively guarantee you and swear.
The next one's going to be about catching snakes and getting bit.
That'll be good. Not that I know anything about.
It's going to include both of us and Creekmore.
And Creekmore, okay.
Yeah, because he was showing off for a gal at Arkansas Tech, and he picked up a big old cottonmouth, and it turned around and bit him in the hand.
Cottonmouth did?
Yeah, big one, and he got the real deal. And
oh man,
he was showing off for a blonde gal.
That's what happens. You need women. Always women.
And Professor Red Tatum walked in and said,
I've met Red Tatum, I think.
That snake bites you, boy.
See, it's funny now. It probably wasn't funny then.
Wasn't funny then. They thought they were going to take his hand off.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's a bad cracker.
And he'd already been in the military for several years, and he's like, "You ain't taking my hand off."
We could talk. But wait, you also but wait, you also get Tim's Tennessee Tales, including the never before release Child Car Seat Chronicles. Car Seat Chronicles.
we might need
That down.
we might need Tina and Carol to be our publicists.
Yeah, I gotta write that down, Car Seat.
But wait.
Wait, there's more.
K-Tel. Wow. This was a fun show.
It is. It's not. It is.
I
It's
like
still
cowboy
fun.
stuff. This was a fun show.
Well, if you got a cowboy in the show, there's no need in wasting that talent. You might as well use it. I mean, if you ever grew up wanting to be a cowboy, Mark's done enough of it that he can probably claim it as a cowboy. I mean, never his original official career, but he's done it. I mean, you get out and do these things, you end up learning a lot of stuff. Some of it not good.
Well,
Some of it
the previous owner of the ranch
what
named me as one of his cowboys.
Well, there you go then.
Which I took.
Now
an honor, and then his daughter took a picture of me pushing cows one day and used it on the cover of the stock growers pamphlet.
Well, hell, that makes it really official.
I was like, what? If they'd only known I was a game and fish guy.
Yeah, but once you made that pamphlet cover, that makes you a bona fide. That's bona fide.
I'm bona fide.
You're bona fide now. Without a doubt. That is pretty cool. Oh my goodness. Carol, did you see what Carol said about her brain? She's lost a lot, but then what's left is 1970s TV stuff. You probably think maybe that's our case too, 60s and 70s.
I was clicking around looking at something the other day, and like I hit the theme song for Welcome Back, Kotter.
And then it got stuck in your head, right?
And then it was stuck in my head the rest of the day.
Hey, I'm speaking of that. Well, not that, but hang on. I'm going to cut you. Keep talking. I'm going to cut my camera
What
off.
am I going to talk about? I don't know nothing to talk about.
I'm going to show you something. Just hang on a minute.
I got to be cued. It's been fun.
Look here, what I dug out.
But while I'm sitting here on my backside, my boy's out there
punching cows. Look here, what I dug up.
He's punching cows. Look at that. Look at that beauty.
Look at that. Look there. I was worried about this because I hadn't seen it.
She's getting dark and black, man. That's
cool. Isn't it? I need to rub some oil on it. I hadn't oiled it lately. But I wanted you. I was worried about this because after the move, I hadn't seen it lately. And but the other day I said, I know it's got to be right up here. So I found this one and my Howard Hill bow together. I had them both strung and sitting in a corner. I had them laying on a shelf
in the sun.
In the sun. Well, just part of the day because You want the sun to move to condition it correctly to get the right fork. Mark,
With those limbs a twisting.
We need to talk about something. I just saw something right here. It's a little scary.
What do you got?
Well, I may have a crack right here coming out of that.
Which way is it going? Which way is it going?
With down this way with the
right
grain.
Down the grain. It's so fine. It's fine.
You don't think I might need?
It's not going to the side.
Well, not yet. I'll look at it closer. I just now saw that. I hadn't noticed it being cracked like that. I'll make sure that gets
both sides of the stave, or just that one side?
Just that one. It ain't all the way through this side.
Yeah, longitudinal cracks aren't a big deal. The ones that go to the side are the big deal. They'll make it explode on you.
Well, and you can see, right, Mark made this bow for me, or gave it to me. I don't know if he started out for me, but anyway, it's mine now. And it's a piece
I built that bow for you.
I thought you did. It's an Osage orange bow, and one thing about when you use natural wood to make this is called a self bow. This is not a bow show, but just it has little, not defects. It has character.
It's got character marks on it.
Yeah, and I thought, and it's cool because right up here, I really like this because it's got a little character marker, a little dent right here, and you wrap that with sinew.
I put sinew on it
to strengthen that up. But this is a bow Mark made for me.
Real sinew too. I think.
The reason we were talking about it needing oil or it turning dark was when he made it, it wasn't near this dark. And
yeah, I realize now it turns dark over the years, and it eventually will almost be black.
Yeah,
which is cool. It just, you can kind of tell the edge of a bow by how dark it is. But
no, that makes sense. If it's
some of those old Comanche bows and things from down in that part of the world are like almost jet black now. The originals, from the 1800s kind of.
So anyway, I didn't want to interrupt the show so much, but I just wanted you to see that I had.
Yeah, beauty, dude.
I love it.
Now go shoot some arrows
this week too, Bob.
Bring her out and go shoot some arrows out of her.
I need to. I might do that this week if I can draw it. I'm still working on the draw with the shoulder, but I have been working on that.
How's the wrist doing?
Okay, sore. It's still a little sore.
But the shoulders doing better?
Yeah, it's a lot better. It's just I don't know if I can pull a 55. I think that bow draws about 50, 55 pounds. I'm not sure I'm quite up to that. I think I could probably draw 45, but we'll see because I got a couple to try.
Yeah, don't bugger up something over it.
I also finished rebuilding this old lamp here.
I see that. It's beauty.
I put a 3-way switch in it. Didn't actually mean to, but when I bought it, that's all they had. But because it had a different kind of socket and stuff for the bulb was different, antique. And so I put a new one in and I put a new shade on it. But I had to run. It's tricksy running a wire down through here and then making it go this way and then back this way. Because that's a tight little fit right there, buddy.
Yeah.
but it all worked out in the end, so I got it.
Well, that reminds me of something that David Stanley just told me.
What's that?
He went to see his mama, that lives up there on the Ohio River, and she had a light. She got a new light. And she said it has 3 speed settings. and David said, "What, of light?"
3
3 speed settings.
Cool.
I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Hey, Carol,
You've
thank
met Ruth.
appreciate you coming in every weekend. Your support means a lot. You guys, all you guys that are in here. So you have a good weekend, and we'll be close. We're going to be winding down here just in a minute anyway. It's about time. I'm sure Mark wants to go. I know Mark don't want to go punch cattle right now, but
I'm not going to, but my wife's got me going out, and
oh,
so I'm moving horses today.
oh yeah, you said you were
And
changing.
then my wife gave me a duty of we got a big old wild rose bush that has growed up over our satellite dish.
Oh no.
And so I'm going to go cut canes for arrow shafts and trim that sucker right to the ground.
That sounds interesting. If you get
Yeah,
some
that'll
arrow
be
shafts out of it.
it. And it's a thorny one too. So but I got a good cutter. I'll cut that thing down or cut.
That's why we're having
I'll cut the canes off of it and then make arrow shafts out of them. But
yeah, I would like to see some of those.
I got a bunch of them in here in the house somewhere that I've already dried and they're ready for making arrows out of. But
Is there a lot of straightening to do once they dry out? I mean, are they like most natural things, dry crooked a little bit?
yeah, you got a lot of heating and straightening to do. But I've got a good straight set. I've got about a dozen that I've already put knocks on, and not put plastic knocks on, but put carved knocks on.
Carved knocks and wrap.
And I've already straightened them, and they're oiled and everything, and a little grease and a little heat, and you can get them good and straight. And
Cool.
someday I'm going to use them, but
Yeah. Well,
or my grandchildren will, or
you can certainly
they'll
make.
they'll probably just throw them in the garbage.
No, let's hope not. I don't think so. Them boys are. You're raising them boys right.
Did you freeze up on me?
No, I think I'm still here. I was just.
Oh, you were. You just were so still. I was like, dang it, it's doing it again.
No, I was just being real still and listening. I was trying to pay attention.
I hope my grandsons like want to do that.
I hope so.
They both have bows.
Yeah, you already got a handmade bow for both.
Both of them have Osage bows I built for them, and I know they're going to still be outdoor woodsman types. I just hope they don't pick up the wheelbow and go that direction.
Yeah, well, there's
one of them's daddy hunts with a real bow, and one of them's daddy hunts with a. Heck, he might even hunt with a cross gun.
Oh no! Don't say that. Oh, be still my heart. Don't.
I think he's got a bow, but I think he's shooting a compound.
But not maybe not a crossbow.
Not a cross gun.
We'll have to talk about that someday. Explain our reactions.
Our dismay and dislike.
Yeah. Well, we both fought in the crossbow wars a little bit anyway. You did a lot.
A lot.
And yeah. I did at one time and was involved in that kind of stuff too. And some of us think it's a big deal. Some people don't think it's anything, I guess, but
well, and anybody I don't know who's still on here.
There's still a couple people on here. Kate,
I would highly recommend going to the Wyoming Game and Fish Department's website and commenting on the Sublette Pronghorn Migration Corridor. and getting that thing sewed up. All comments help.
Well,
We're trying to designate it, and I fought for it for 20 years, and it today's the last day for comment, I think.
oh no, well I have to get on there and make
Oh
sure.
no, yesterday was, so never mind.
Oh man. Well, I don't guess I need to put the link up then.
Yeah, it
What
was.
would that go under? Public access or?
Well, Wyoming Migration Initiative. Um, it's a migration that goes all the way from Jackson Hole, Wyoming to Rock Springs, Wyoming, one of the longest in the world.
Really?
Yeah. And we designated the corridor where most of them traveled.
Uh,
And in today's world, with today's politics, it's under threat. So
right. I got it. I get you. I'm gonna.
I sent it out on Facebook many times, and
I may have comments.
I think Danny Stroud sent it out too. Um, Rich Genzel, bunch of us pronghorn people like sent it out and tried to get the word out for folks to comment.
Well, I hope it passes. These kinds of things for the uninitiated, or for those who might not have heard us or someone else talk about it, these kind of projects sometimes can take a long time to get through, and it's not because I'm going to say this, and I mean it. It's not because federal or state employees are lazy and don't want to get up and do anything. It's because 14 million people have to comment on stuff.
Right.
And the more the American public is aware, the more comments you're going to get. And you may not think this, but most people get responses back. I mean, they get somewhere or another their questions get answered, if not directly to them. Then in the back of the documents and the amendments often have these comments and things. But the point is, a project like he's talking about covers a lot of. How far did you say it was from where to where?
It goes all the way from Jackson, up in the northwest corner, all the way to Rock Springs.
Well, that's a pretty good.
And historically, it probably went all the way down into Colorado, but the interstate's in the way now. But it's
these kind of things.
our critters out here have to migrate from summer range to winter range, and it does. I mean, like, if you go to Ohio or something, a white-tailed deer might live in a 5 square mile area its entire life, and here they migrate hundreds of miles from summer range to winter range, and they go downhill as conditions worsen, and then do the reverse every year, and they've been doing it for literally thousands of years.
Yeah.
And
we as humans,
they're working hard to booger that whole deal up. And it's not they current, it's they forever. I mean, for at least the last 100 years, probably.
Right.
And we've mitigated things, and we've made highway crossings, and we've done all kind of cool stuff that have been really successful, and put up fencing and made overpasses over the highways and things, and it'd be a shame to see all that go to waste. But anyway,
I'm reading something here. This is not. I don't think this has got what you're talking about right now. But they're saying that there's a comment thing open but it's for the state wildlife action plan. Is that part of that?
No,
Okay, that's a different thing.
no, I'll send it to you.
Okay, I'm sure you have, but send it again if you guys. I mean, even if it's too late,
It's on the My Face.
okay.
I sent it on the My Face.
I can find it then. Don't worry about it. I'll get it. I've had it before. In fact, I think I may have it copied on my hard drive. And but these kind of things are not simple, and they're very complicated. And when you get something that's crossing basically an entire state the size of Wyoming, there it's you're crossing probably federal lands and state lands and private lands and railroad lands, and I mean there's so many things that are going on in the background that you just don't know, that most people don't ever see or know about, and it can all those things can come into play. I mean water rights, water pollution, water mitigation for wetlands, and I mean, all that stuff is affected or can be affected, and a lot of them are important. And then you throw developers in there and ranchers or farmers, and I mean, everybody's got an opinion, as they say. And they say something different, but I don't want to say it online. Well, I'll say opinions are like,
Yeah, those things.
yeah, rectal orifices.
Everybody's got one.
Everybody's got one.
Yeah, it was called the Sublette Antelope Migration Corridor.
Okay.
Through the North American Pronghorn Foundation. That's who sent out the call to action. Anyway. And then there was a really cool pronghorn thing that came out called Unwired.
Yeah.
Making space for pronghorn in Wyoming's Red Desert, even though they had all their space already. But just like taking fences down.
That's what I wondered if that's what you meant by unwired.
Yep. Yeah. Well, they didn't take fences down. They modified them so they were wildlife friendly. And that was cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And again, that's something when barbed wire and stuff became common in the American West, on all the grazing lands and open range, what became not open range, and I mean that stuff didn't just affect where people's cattle were; it affected elk and deer or mule deer and antelope, or not antelope, pardon me, pronghorn, buffalo if they were left. I mean, buffalo had to walk through it. It slowed them down at least a tiny bit. But
yeah,
I mean,
the big one here is, I mean, barbed wires. If you don't have too many wires, if you just got 4 strands or whatever, that's not a big deal. But if
sure.
if it's net wire, the sheep wire, that's a big deal. That one, that's a killer. And that's what that documentary, it's a documentary, and it's specific to net wire fences on an old sheep ranch.
Yeah.
And the younger generation switched from sheep to cattle, so they didn't need net wire fences. But those were the fences they had, and it's expensive to replace fence.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Especially when you're talking about miles and miles and miles of it.
Yeah, hundreds of miles. In this case, it's like, I don't know how many acres, a lot, 8,000, something like that. That's a lot of fence, and that's a huge cost to the ranch, and they don't make very much money anyway. And so the department came in and partnered with them, and they're converting all that fence to wildlife friendly fence. And so, yeah, pretty cool. Bottom wire smooth, about 18 inches off the ground, and then 3 barbs above it. hold your cow just fine, but not a pronghorn or
They
a mule deer. But
they
anyway,
need to go over or go through it.
pardon?
They can go over or through. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But
and buddy, they can too. All right, guys. Well, it's
all
probably
right, I'm
Mark.
gonna get off here. I gotta go to work.
Okay, well, you go to work, and everybody else have a great weekend. Thanks, buddy. I'll
Thanks
talk to you
everybody
later.
that's still here. We'll see you next time.
See, who knows? We might have a new album out soon. That mine. All right, guys. Everybody have a great weekend. Everybody take care. If you're out traveling, be safe on the roads. Um, I think next weekend's Mother's Day, so maybe we'll talk about. I think so. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. I'm not sure what we're going to do next week, but we'll come up with something. But anyway, everybody take care and have a good time. Thanks for being here. Love y'all. Oh, I forgot to mention that Brenda was sick this morning, and she wasn't going to make it, which obviously she's not been here. So she was feeling really bad this morning. So, I gave her a pass as if that would work. Anyway, everybody take care, and I'm sure she'll be back next week. And have a good time. See you real soon.